The CNN Fear and Greed Index is a measure of how bullish investors feel about US shares. And right now, it's sitting close to the extreme greed section. So a greed measure says investors feel strongly that share prices are going to go up. A strong fear measure shows that investors expect share prices to go down. And the 7 metrics are price strength. So that's a measure of how many shares are at 52-week highs compared to those that are at 50-week, 2-week low. The second measure is price breadth, which is the percentage of shares that are on the way up compared to those that are falling. Think about that as squinting at the board and seeing if it looks mostly green or mostly red. The third measure is the put to call ratio. So that's a measure of the action in put options, that is the right to sell a share at a fixed price, and in call options, that is the right to buy at a fixed price. So an excess of puts would indicate fear, and an excess of calls would indicate greed. The fourth one is what they call the safe haven demand, and that's the difference between the return on stocks or shares and on bonds. Over time, you expect shares to provide a higher return because they're risky, and the spread between the two is a measure of the demand for shares. The fifth measure is the junk bond demand, and that's measured by looking at the difference in yield on junk bonds, that's bonds that are below investment grade, relative to investment grade bonds. A wider spread indicates fear, and a narrower spread indicates greed. And right now it's looking pretty tight. The sixth measure is momentum, and that's whether the S&P 500, the 500 largest shares in the US, are above or below the 125-day moving average, which means it's trending upwards. And finally, number 7 is the good old friend, the VIX index, or volatility index. It peaked in April with Trump tariff tantrum and has now come right back to its normal position. So that's a relatively neutral trend. But with all of these indicators, they are indicators. It's not gospel. This is not Newton's third law of thermodynamics. It's a trend that over time proves to be relatively stable. But as always, when it comes to investing, if some is good, more is not always better, and diversification is always your friend.